to listen to you. Seriously.
Thank you. I think I like also now know how to drop into my voice, which I didn't always.
So you weren't always like this?
No.
This is like so surprising to me because like obviously I know a little bit about your background. Hold on, let me just
wait. Are we recording?
Yeah, are we recording?
This is good.
Yes.
We're getting right in. We're diving in face first. That's how we like to do it.
So I like know a little bit about your background. Obviously, you were a model, but like you were not who you are today, or maybe that was a part of you, but like you hadn't found that part.
Oh yes, I mean completely different version. But you know, it's interesting. She was in there, right? Like there were elements where the woman I am today was in there. I just had to do a lot of work on finding the confidence to really bring her out, as a lot of us do.
So talk to me about that time in your life. What was it like when you had just moved to New York? Because you moved here, you were like in your early 20s, I believe?
Early 20s.
Yeah. So,
and I was 22.
And where did you grow up before that?
Syracuse.
Okay. So you moved to the city at 21, which by the way is not an easy thing to do because especially a place like New York, like there's so much being thrown at you. And if you've not developed into your own person, it can like sway you in any different way.
100%. And I could feel that like starting to happen. But I was really just so different. As you know, it's like, I'm sure when anyone looks back on their younger years, especially their like 20s or early 20s, nonetheless, I feel like I was the most like chaotic person, like the most chaotic version of myself. Like it was just everything felt that way in my life. And I think it all really stemmed from the foundation of my mind. Like that was just how I thought, right? And I think most of the chaos in our lives begins there.
Define what you mean by chaotic. Like, what was your life like? Was it kind of driven by the kind of career you were in? Because modeling, you know, how long ago was this? Like 7, 8, 9 years ago was very different from what it is today.
A completely different industry.
Like it was just all based on your size and all this pressure. I mean, it was grueling.
Yeah, it was really tough. But like that's all I knew. So I really tried to fit the mold. It was like I did anything and everything that I could to morph into that like character, if you will, you know? And I think what I see now is, you know, like when I talk to a model and maybe not even just a model, but I happen to live in New York and, you know, even in my husband's industry, I see a lot of girls out. And if you are not confident, like if you don't have that real foundation of just self-confidence stepping into that business, it will swallow you alive. And it did. Like, I mean, I definitely found my way of becoming more of myself, but it took almost a decade being in the industry and just being told my thighs were too big constantly. Like I was always on more of the curvier scope on my board and on like the modeling board I was on. And that really like sticks with you, you know? It's just like that feeling of constantly never being enough. And I didn't feel enough anyways. So it wasn't just the industry at that time. It was really how I felt as a person.
Yeah, totally.
You know? And it just brought out other qualities within me.
So when did you decide that you were going to like work towards kind of healing from that place? Like when did you realize that, okay, no, I'm done with this and it's time to kind of go a different way?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I was just, it's like, I think back to the girl who was like going out, getting fucked up on the weekends, waking up, like my weekends consisted of like nursing hangovers.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's normal. I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's not. And I think it's important even for these younger generations to know that, you know, being completely blackout drunk and not remembering the night when you wake up there's nothing to normalize there. I think we need to have these conversations and just give ourselves this moment to like self-reflect, right? It's like when you are living in that place, it's awful. Like waking up on the weekend and just having no energy, not looking forward to the day, not showering until 7 p.m. and then getting ready to do it again.
Yeah.
Like that's normal, right?
And you're so right. And I was hanging out with Dylan like a few days ago, and I was telling her that like, you know, this was my life throughout college.
Yeah.
And, you know, it wasn't until I started working at a magazine, and at that same time I was working on my blog, and I couldn't afford to take my weekends off to kind of be hungover. And that's when I was like, I'm actually not going to drink anymore. And I went like, just like, because I didn't want to waste the time, and I was tired of feeling like shit and anxious the next day.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I like all of a sudden I was clearer. I had all this energy. Not to say that, you know, if you're drinking, you're doing a bad thing. Like I will enjoy a drink now and then now.
Yeah, I want to say that. I wanted to get to that too, not to cut you off, but I'm not here at all to say like you shouldn't drink. You should
totally.
Like, that is that's a decision only you can make for yourself. But I do think we are in a movement to really take a closer look at how we're living our life, how we feel. Like, how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
You know, like I chose to stop drinking because I realized the person I became. It was really like the next day really affected me, spiked my anxiety. Just like reactive as all hell, which is a pretty normal state for me. So I have to work really hard. I have to work extra hard not to go into that reactive nature. Like I really try to respond first. Doesn't always happen. But just I think really connecting to how I want to feel, like how I want to show up. And it just no longer fit in alignment with the person I want to show up as every day. And I mean, but in my 20s, it took getting to a place where I could no longer, like I couldn't take it anymore. I was like getting really depressed. It was making my eating disorder spiral out of control. And I had some really dark days. And I just knew after one of the darkest days for me, I had a choice.
Yeah.
And I really looked at where things were going and what if I chose another path. And it was just like, that was it for me. Everyone has their own threshold, unfortunately, of rock bottom. And for some, it's really low. For me, this was what I could handle. And I started to make some real changes.
What was the first step that you took to kind of like change your life and find the Melissa that was here today, but was deep inside of you back then?
The first step for me was recognizing that I needed help, that I did have an eating disorder. That for me was like, once I started actually saying it, because going back to normalizing behavior, I normalized that behavior, those patterns for so long where I would never let myself ever think that I had any issue with food, which I now know. It was really not even the food I had an issue with. It was my relationship to self. So asking for help was my like real moment. And I started seeing a therapist. I called one of my best friends who was in therapy, and I was like, I need your therapist's information. Like it was really just 2 steps. And they sound simple, but it takes a lot of courage.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of
for
course.
you to just be honest with yourself. I didn't tell anyone, by the way. No one knew in my life that I was doing the things that I was doing behind like the closest people in my lives back. Like none of them knew because I was really good at hiding my pain, which is also something that I think is really normal for people to just internalize all of the things, no matter what it is. I think for me, coming from a background like with a lot of chaos growing up and dysfunction, it really manifested itself in many different forms in my life. And I was really embarrassed of it. I was like really embarrassed that I didn't have this like perfect family growing up, like it was something that I wanted so badly and kind of attached myself to people even growing up in my life who had that because it felt good. Like it felt safe. It felt supportive. And for me, I think I carried a lot of shame, especially moving to New York. I remember the moment I moved into my first apartment on 66 and First on the Upper East Side. It was this tiny, I don't even think my entire apartment was as big as this room.
Wow.
It was small.
Tiny, yeah.
Oh, I don't even think the code could approve that. I actually think they should go look at that because I'm just like, how? Yeah, my room was like so small. But I remember the first time I like shut my bedroom door, that was definitely a closet. And I remember this feeling of like deep anxiety and just being like, oh my God, I'm like with myself. I'm like with all of these emotions that I push down, and like they're here. And they started to really reveal themselves in New York. And I think New York has a way of like really being a mirror for you and just like moving to New York, you can't hide. You can't really hide for too long anywhere in life, but New York really has a way of bringing things to the surface.
Yes, 100%. It's a hard city, and I feel like I would say the same about LA as well, because I know people who, are my age, like I'm 30 and I've met people my age.
So young.
Thank you.
Look at this brand you've built.
Thank you, Melissa. That means so much.
Wow.
But yeah, when I moved to LA, I started to meet a lot of people, and I would notice people who had maybe moved to the city when they were younger, but they hadn't had a chance to confront those like issues within them or like heal from it. And the way that they show up, it's so different from someone who has confronted those things and worked through them, And big cities are tough.
Yeah, they are. And I will say, to just add on what you just mentioned, I'm turning 40 this year, and I have had this moment of like, wait, I've been doing all of this work for so long, and like new things, deeply rooted traumas and stuff has been like coming to the surface. So I used to think that I was healed. I did. I thought I was healed. And what I'm really discovering at this point in my life is that like the healing never ends.
I agree. Yeah.
I think when you're on a quest of really evolving into your highest self, which is like what I desire more than anything in my life, I'm so open to the expansion where it's like peeling back the layers on the things I still haven't confronted. So I think for anyone out there who feels like, oh, wow, I haven't it's like, it really is a journey. It's like there is no like finish line with healing.
It's a journey that never ends.
It's a never ending journey. And it gets easier sometimes, and then it gets harder, but you continue to get stronger and to be able to deal with the things when you have a toolkit that can really help you.
How important were relationships and mentors throughout your journey? Because the reason I ask this is because, you moved to New York when you were in your early 20s. You'd gone into modeling. Like, that's really fucking tough. Yeah. And so how did you start to build those positive relationships and just bring in those people who you should have been surrounding yourself with?
When I first moved here, I worked at the Chanel counter in Bloomingdale's, and I was very fortunate to have worked with a woman, Donna Ganji, who took me in. I knew no one really in the city. She has a place in Queens, and I lived in the basement in her in-law suite. And she was really someone that was there for me and like gave me a really like supportive foundation when I had nothing. I had nothing in my life close to that. So I think I've always naturally really gravitated towards people and even friends who I look up to or who just give me that sense of like safety and security and like people that I can learn from. I remember being like really little and always wanting to be around the people that just, made me think about life.
I think it's a really good tip because, I mean, you know the saying that like you're a product of the 5 people that you spend your time with. And
you really are.
You know, I don't even necessarily think that those are 5 people that you're constantly hanging out with. It's like, what are you exposing yourself to,
Yes.
you know? And like, if you are in a very dark place, like, what are you listening to?
Yeah.
What are you watching? You know, like where are you spending your time? I think all of these things matter.
Oh they're so crucial. I mean, I think with the day and age that we live in too, with social media and just reality television, I know. I think these younger generations, like that is what they have grown into, is like, that's what's in their face, right? So I always love speaking to the younger, the people who are still, it's like that ripe point in your life where someone can really like crack you open. It's so important to take a look at who you have. Like I always say, like pulled up a seat to your table. Like who are you giving your energy to?
I agree.
And what are you consuming? Like, what are you watching? No one has time. No one has time to do anything. No one has time to take care of themselves. But how many hours a day are you spending scrolling on social media?
Thank you.
It's wild.
It's insane. Like everyone should go look at their screen time.
Yeah,
because
look at your screen time. I look at mine and it's scary. But I also work off my phone.
Yeah.
So
but like, I mean, it's true. And just like what people are consuming, like if, I don't know, like you're just constantly taking in things which are so mindless, like constantly, I don't know, like it has an impact, right? Like for me personally,
I'm an impact on your mental health.
I'm like very sensitive to whatever I take in. And I try like to very much avoid like taking in like negative things because I would notice, like, for example, if the news is incessantly on, right? It's like it really brings me down.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Like if I'm just consuming reality TV where people are fighting on air constantly, right? Like it's fine to do it once in a while, whatever. Right. But like if that's all I'm consuming, it's hard. It's hard on the nervous system, I feel.
It is. And I think people spend so much time in the know of other people's lives and they don't know who they are.
Yes. Agreed.
They don't know who they are. And we wonder why, right?
So when you started to kind of like this journey looking inwards, did you start with meditation? Like what were some of the tools?
No, not right away.
So how did you even get into that portion of things?
I started with a therapist. And I think for me, just like understanding why I was behaving the way that I was behaving, why I was resorting to, attaching myself to certain things and tools that weren't serving me was like a big moment of like understanding myself. And then I started working with a health coach. And I went to a health coach. This was before I had ever enrolled at IIN, the online nutrition school that I love. But I went there with one mission in mind, and I wanted her to give me a plan. I wanted a diet. I wanted her to write everything out that I needed to eat, what time I needed to eat it, how much that was my mindset at that time. And I just remember she did not do that. She was amazing, actually. And she started to ask me questions about like how I was waking up in the morning, was the first thing I was doing. And I started to really look at my life, you know, and then it was really more of like, I felt called to expand my awareness. And after that, something definitely shifted in me, but I felt like I needed to go deeper. I didn't know necessarily what it was, but I like took a weekend. I did like a weekend workshop in New It was transcendental meditation. And that was like the first time I had ever really meditated. And I have, since that weekend, I have meditated just about every single day since. And that was over a decade ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if
because I felt it was immediate.
I mean, honestly, though, I will say, like, when sometimes I lose my meditation practice, but now I'm in it again, right?
Yeah.
And when I'm doing it, it's like medicine for the mind. Like, I cannot even explain it. I show up as a better version of myself. I mean, you're just way less reactive. I don't know. I know. You glide through your day with a little bit more ease.
You really do. I mean, you literally said it perfectly. It's just been one of those things that I realized, like, being a very sensitive person. And if you think about it, our days are spent like reacting to people's needs, right? From the moment most people wake up, they'll look at their phone and respond to emails, respond to DMs. So you haven't done a thing to take care of yourself and you're already taking care of other people. So like that right there will set you in a state of just giving to everyone else. But like if you're not giving from a full cup, right? From a real nourished soul, you're going to crack. Like that's at least how I feel when I, like, the mornings that I do touch my phone, which I really try to avoid 30 minutes at least to an hour after I wake up, because it's like you jump on the hamster wheel and it's just, you're on that wheel all day like a puppet to everyone's needs. And I'm like extremely consistent with my stuff because I have to be. And I know what it feels like to not feel like good about myself and not even about myself, like to feel mentally stable. I'm okay saying that. I would be afraid to say that years ago, but I'm like, no.
You know, I'm so glad that you do, because I work with Nish, who's my husband.
Yeah.
And we are so different in that way, okay? Like I have very, very strict boundaries around what has to happen before I look at my Slack messages and, get on a call or, answer emails. I have to start my day with like mindfulness and movement. Otherwise,
watch out.
Yeah. It's like you're a slave to everyone else and you're just kind of like being pulled in every which direction. Yeah. And, I know. It's really rough.
It's rough. He doesn't need to do any of that.
Neither
does Noah.
I don't understand. Is it a man thing? Like I don't, or is it just that they don't know how stressed they are? Like I'm so confused.
I think it's a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think it's
honestly, like
I hate to say that because neither one of them are here, but I mean, I do think, like, I can say that Noah responds very differently to stressful situations than I do.
Same.
I'm like so emotionally triggered by things, and I think that's just like in his nature.
Yeah.
But I really do think, no matter who you are,
I think you can benefit from it.
Everyone can benefit from like taking a mindfulness moment to themselves before even just touching your phone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you have to do a 20-minute meditation and work out. Like, just imagine not touching technology for the first 20, 30 minutes when you wake up.
Honestly, really good first step for
that would be the first thing I would say.
Honestly, agreed, because that is, first of all, it's fucking hard.
It is.
Okay? Like, I remember it was 2020, actually. Yeah. I did like a New Year's resolution where just for 1 month in January, I wouldn't touch my phone as soon as I woke up changed my life.
Changes your life.
Like I became a different person.
Yes.
I wasn't consuming social media as soon as I woke up and I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yes.
Like,
No, it really is. I mean, I've used to be a perfectionist and now I'm a recovering perfectionist. So like we all have those days.
Totally.
But I think just paying really close attention to how you feel aligned when you commit. When you commit to things that really better who you are.
Yep. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So I've heard you talk about you kind of like increasing your standards over time. Okay. So I know like I've for example, like I remember when you got your office where you were like, at one point I couldn't even imagine that I would have an office. And then now I have this office and it's like, you know, over time, as you have shifted as a human being, you've kind of called in those things as well.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about mindset and the kind of expectation that we have to what we deserve, I guess?
Yes, I love this. I love this conversation. You know, I really believe that everything you think, you start to believe. Like all of the things that we tell ourselves is what we absorb. So for me, I used to say things like, you know, I would maybe walk into a beautiful space and be like, oh, wow, like can't believe this. Well, I wonder how this feels. Must be nice. Well, I'd never have that. And I think that's like such a normal, you know.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Like even I
mean.
recognize like that's how I used to think. And everything was impossible, like felt impossible. And now I believe so deeply in the realm of just limitless potential and possibilities for all of us. And I really do like the beautiful office that I have now, like the office that we're moving into next year is something I'm like, no, this is right. Like this, I am deserving of this. And I have actually brought this into my life with the way that I live my life, the way that I show up for myself, the way that I show up for others, the way that I give, because I do believe that comes back. That comes back to you in so many different forms. And I no longer allow that story to be a part of what I consume. And if it starts to come up, which it does, you know, like I'm just about to launch something and the voices started to come, right? Like we all have those voices, by the way. Some are louder than others. And that voice used to be it was unbearing. Like I couldn't even, it was like, I believed that voice. I believed that voice. But now I'm like, no, I'm choosing not to listen to that. Like that's not true. And you can create a different storyline. Like, but it takes that self-awareness to be like, oh no, there she is. Like I'm starting to spiral, and then bringing it back to, you know what? I've worked my ass off. I've surrounded myself with really good people. We've built an incredible team, and this is the next chapter.
What are some tangible tips you can give to someone for raising that standard that they have, where like, you know, they stop talking to themselves in that way that like must be nice, you know? And
I know. That was me.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I think it really starts from this seed of self-love with yourself and working on your relationship with self. Because when you really work on the way that you speak about yourself first, that reflects on the way you see the world.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think our relationship with ourselves is of utmost importance.
Yeah.
And you can't really show up for everyone else if you don't have that solid foundation.
No.
So when you went through this like inflection point during COVID, which is so funny because I always tell Dylan this, and I'm sure she's told you, but you know, you were at, I think, 200,000 followers.
Yeah.
Our business was brand fucking new.
Yeah. I remember.
We gifted you product. You blew us up.
Oh.
You blew up. What do you think it was that really spoke to people? And was it then that you felt like, okay, no, you know, it's time. Like, I really believe that this business is going to be something. Like, what were the series of events that happened?
Yes. Well, first of all, I remember you guys gifting me Array, and I tried it. It was like right in the beginning of 2020. I tried it for like 3 months. I remember Dylan like checking in, and I'm like, I'm not done yet. I'm like so crazy when I'm testing something because I really like to give it like
as you
a
should.
real test. You know, like I like to finish the bottle if I'm testing skincare because I think, you know, things can change.
Totally.
Something that's feels great in 14 days could feel different in 60 or 90 days. So I always say like 30, 60, 90, you got to do like give things a good 3 months of testing before you shout from the rooftops how much you love something. And I fell in love with Array immediately. No, I really mean it because I always say it, but it works and it speaks for itself. I mean, it's so clean and there's 5 ingredients. 6 ingredients. And it's just one of those things. It was like that. Like if anyone here is listening and has that like uncomfortable bloat at the end of the day, you don't have to live with that. And there are things that you can take, natural herbs like Array, that help you feel better.
Honored.
You know? So no, I mean it. I fell in love with it. And then I fell in love with you guys, which is always like for me, it's always unfortunate when you love a brand, but you don't love the people behind the brand.
That's true. It's true.
It usually, you know, puts a damper on the relationship, but it's just incredible.
Thank you.
Yes. But to bring you back to that time, you know, it was really interesting because I think people see something and they're like, oh, wow, that came out of nowhere. Like, wow, look at like that just happened. I'm like, no, I had been doing this for 5 years.
Wow.
You know, like I had a really healthy business when that time in my life, when that time in all of our lives hit. And, you know, it was during such an awful, unfortunate time in the world. It was a silver lining to be able to be easily accessible and affordable for people in a time of major need. And, you know, one thing that I've always thought was important was not just movement. It was this element of mindfully moving your body. Like anyone can do anything. You can move your body in any way, but when you really connect the mind and the body and the soul to like the things that you're doing, I believe that's where you really see a transformation that like lasts because you embody it, right? And when you really, when that starts to affect like every aspect of you, you want more of that.
Yeah.
So you keep coming back to that. And that's really the through line of what keeps, I think, like any sort of program or method or way of moving your body and meditation. That's what keeps people like coming back to it. Is that like connectivity that you have. And that was something, you know, during that time in all of our lives, I think we all realized the importance of, it wasn't just about moving our bodies.
Oh my God.
Had to carve out the
find
space
sanity
to strengthen our mental health and to strengthen our minds.
What do you think it was about your method that like, or you even, like just not just your method, it was also you that really spoke to people? Because there's so many people online, okay? Like there's so many, but it was you. You know, like it was, I mean, I feel like the last 2 years have been like the years of Melissa. So, no, like truly, right? Like it's like, I'm not joking. Like it has been. So what do you think it was? Like, was it the way you spoke to people? Was it the way, like the standard you set for yourself? Like, what was it, do you think?
You know, since like the moment I started, like I like, as I just did that, it like brings me back to my living room, right? And I would have my little tripod set up with my iPhone, and I would go over, and I just remember like from the second I would press start, because I literally filmed everything on my iPhone, I just envisioned speaking to a lot of people who needed help, who like needed to come back to themselves, but in a way where it was like, we're here to learn to love ourselves, you know? Like I don't know, like I still, when I film workouts and I film meditations, I think of like my community, like sitting down. I literally like one day I'm going to do this because I think of us all at a venue, maybe outside, where there's just thousands of us together, and we're all coming together for one thing. And it's just to feel good. It's to feel better in our bodies, in our minds, in the way that we live our lives. So I feel like that is what people feel. Like I never started to start a business. I didn't, you know. I'm so grateful that it's evolved into what it has, because that was never my intention. But I think because I've always really moved with my heart, it's what people have felt. And it's one thing I never want to lose, no matter like how many followers or subscribers. I really bring it back to like to my people. So like the people who you will meet every single day. And you know, I think about it all the time. I think about like, what am I inspired by? Like, what am I really inspired by? Like, who inspires me? And I am so inspired by my community. It's just, I like the stories and the transformations, and it's not physical. Like
it's a mental transformation.
It's a mental transformation that takes place. And while it's amazing, because I always say you start in the mind and the body will follow. Yes, like people have physical transformations as well, but it moves me to my core. And I think people feel that from me, and I hope they do. And
I love that you bring this up, because in my mind, I always feel that the intention behind what someone is doing, I don't know, there's like an energy behind it.
You feel it.
And you feel it. And, you know, as you say this, like I can relate to it on such like a visceral level, because that's why we started Array, where I was like, I can make a difference in people's lives. I know it with every like ounce of my being. And it's almost like the universe or God or whatever, like kind of conspires to get it out to more people, because it's like your heart is like so in it, and you actually come from such a place of purpose.
Yes, you really do. And the universe supports that.
Totally.
Like, I mean, you can tell, right? Like when you're scrolling on social media, like you can feel when you're being sold something. You can feel when there's a share. You can feel when someone lives and breathes something. It's a feeling. It's an energy. And I have, you know, it's an energy that I will never lose sight of, ever, because it's changed my life. It's, you know, this way of life has changed me, and for it, you know, even to change another person's life is it's like, there's nothing more important.
I love that. So I want to talk about social media.
Yeah.
What are your boundaries around it? Because it's an interesting thing, social media, where like you have a direct line of contact with your community, but I also feel like there needs to be some boundaries for your own mental health and sanity as well. So how do you manage that? And, you know, how do you think of like content as well? Like, because your stuff is so authentic and like organic to you. So how do you approach social media as a whole?
It's changed so much, hasn't it? I mean, thank God. I really have created some strong boundaries with myself on what I allow myself to consume and would I allow myself to read and to open and to,
It's true.
Oh yeah, I can tell in 2 seconds if someone's coming after me for something. And the old Melissa would open it up and I would be like, oh wait, and I would try to get this person to like me and now I'm like, I don't do that anymore. I really use social media as a tool to share really all of the things that inspire me, motivate me, even everything in between, like the good, the bad. And I think of it more as like, I never think of capturing content. Like I'm like, oh, it's not, I don't think of like, I have to film content today. That doesn't work with the way that I do things. Like it feels really forced and contrived, and it doesn't connect. Like it has to feel intuitive. And for me, I really see social media as just capturing and sharing the essence of like who I really am, what I'm all about. And that's really it, And then when it comes to all of the other stuff and even scrolling, I'm super careful at whose content I watch and who I'm following.
Do you kind of filter who you follow or whose content you consume based on like who's inspiring you and bringing you value? Like how do you kind of guardrail that?
I've done a huge assessment recently because I followed a lot of people for a long time because it's like, oh, you follow me, I'll follow you back. And then I think it gets to the point where I'm like following people. I'm like, who is it? Like, I don't even know who the person, I don't even know anything. And I'm just like, why am I, like what I absorb and bring into my life is I have to be so careful to the energies that I'm allowing in my life. So now I've really made it where social media for me is like accounts I like to follow or I'm interested in, intrigued of. I love fashion, maybe food, maybe just funny, maybe completely nothing wellness related. It's it like ebbs and flows, but I have like one rule of thumb with myself recently because while like I don't want to fake follow people anymore.
How do you let people go like that then?
Because with love.
Yeah. No, honestly.
With so much love. Because it's just, I think people change and people unfollow me all the time. Like
it's nothing personal.
I'll never ask anyone what. Friends. I have friends. I have people in my, it's just is what it is. It's fine. Maybe I have one too many stories. Dylan, just kidding. You share too much.
Oh my God, I'm dead. Okay, so before we wrap, I want to do a quick rapid fire round.
Okay, I love a rapid fire, even though I talk a lot, so it's hard for me.
So this first question is actually directly from Nish. He's very curious, as am I. I always ask one book recommendation that you would give to everyone. Can we do 3, actually? I'm very curious. I'm a big reader.
You know what? I'm not.
Really?
No. It takes a lot for me to finish a book.
Okay. So you must have some good ones then.
That's me being really honest. I feel like I do like a good read, but it takes a lot for me to finish a book.
Fair.
That's just
honest.
Like complete honesty. Right now, I would say my like go-to, A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. It was a real life-changing book, along with You Can Heal Your Life.
Louise Hay.
By Louise Hay.
I read it for the second time. It's incredible.
And it's so hard. I feel like there's so many. I would say Happy Days by Gabby Bernstein is incredible. Untethered Soul. But yeah, no, I feel like I'm become better at listening to things than reading because I can walk and listen.
I audiobook.
I
no
love,
shame in audiobook.
No, and I love podcasts too. I almost like prefer a podcast over a book these days, but a good read, there's nothing like a good read.
Love all those recommendations. I have to, actually the only one I haven't read is A Return to Love, so now I'm going to.
I love A Return to Love.
Okay,
Help me
well,
love myself.
that's my next read.
It's a good one.
What is your best tip around wellness for someone who is just wanting to get started?
What is my best tip around wellness for someone that is just getting started?
Like today is your day one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like we already touched on it. I would definitely start with like avoiding touching your phone in the morning, but I want to go a step deeper. I would say to, yes, but I feel like that's a lot for someone who is just starting. Dylan.
Dylan has all the
Dylan
tips.
is coming in. I'm really thinking of someone who like just is starting like raw. I would say like the first thing you do in the morning is to like bring in something really uplifting in your mind. And for me, it always goes back to gratitude because I think wellness is, you know, can be so focused around like what we're eating and consuming, which is very important. But I really feel, even to go a step deeper than that, it's the most important thing is like the things that we consume and are absorbing and telling ourselves. So filling your mind with something really uplifting, like coming back to something that you just feel really good about, something you love, something you're really grateful for in your life. I think it's a good start.
I actually love this tip, Melissa, because I remember when I was getting started in my wellness journey and I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
It started with the 5-minute journal, and
Yes, I love the
gratitude
5-minute
shifted the way, like, it doesn't have to be the 5-minute journal. It can be like any form of gratitude.
Yes.
So I think like just that attitude of like feeling grateful for, there must be something.
Yes.
It forces you to shift how you think, because I think it's Dr. Daniel Amen who talks about like
amazing,
incredible, the automatic negative thoughts, like ants in the morning, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And you wake up.
We all have them.
Yeah. And you almost have to like program the way that you think to like shift to the positive first thing in the morning. And I think gratitude is the easiest way to do that.
It is. And it can really be like a simple thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I love that.
Just like, I mean, gratitude for your health, to be able to like stand on your 2 feet, you know?
Let me tell you, as someone who's broken my ankles many times, I have learned to be grateful for like being able to stand.
Things that we all take advantage of.
Truly, truly.
Right?
Great tip. Last question. What is a habit that is a non-negotiable for you?
Meditation.
Okay.
I think a lot of people think it's movement, which, by the way, it's like they go hand in hand. But if I only had time for one thing, for me, it's carving out that space to strengthen my mind, because everything else just really falls into place. And then you usually find those like 15 minutes to get movement in. It's amazing.
Wait, I have a question actually. This is not rapid fire, but on
neither were any of my answers.
No, this is like false advertising around rapid fire, because I'm not a host who can just be like, yeah, okay, next one. I'm like, but what do you mean?
No,
like,
me
tell
too.
me more.
I like can't rapid fire.
Okay, so last question. The movement that you do, is it really just like, you know, whatever you can get in a day? Like you don't have like I'm going to do 45 minutes. It's like 15 minutes if I can get it in.
I haven't done a 45-minute workout since the last 40-minute flow I have on the site, which is probably 9 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so it really is exactly how you show, like getting it in whenever you can.
Literally to a T. Like every single thing. Like I haven't stepped foot in a studio. Everything I do is what I share. And like today, I had a real moment with myself where I'm like, you know what? I haven't been feeling my best. I haven't been feeling like fully aligned. I am creating more space for myself. You know, these like little 5 minutes have been helpful. They've made an impact in my day, but I am desiring more. So today I had 15 minutes and I feel so much better. But like I'm a big like 15 to 20 minutes a day girl. Leading up to this launch, it's been like some days I've done like 3-minute abs or 5-minute arms. If I'm lucky, some days it's been like 10-minute full bodies. I also haven't been filming my workouts. I used to film twice a week. We've taken a little bit of a pause. So I swear that consistency is the key that holds it all together. Because while I can feel in my mind that I'm like, we got to bring it back. So like 15 minutes for me today was like, oh, I feel so much better.
I love that. I am so excited to see what you're launching. Tell everyone where they can find you.
I cannot wait. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited for you and Ray and all the amazing things to come. But you can find me at Melissa Wood Health, melissawoodhealth.com. And I also have Move with Heart.
An incredible podcast.
Thank you.
Which I'm so happy
I need to have you come on.
I'd be honored.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been honestly an honor.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here with you.
This was so fun.
This was so fun. You're amazing.
Thank you.
You're incredible.